$3,142. That is the number on your screen. It is 7:45 p.m. on a Sunday. You are sitting on a sofa you financed over 24 months, staring at a laptop provided by a company that would replace you by Thursday if you died on Wednesday. The Sunday scaries aren't just a feeling, they are a physiological response to captivity. You open your calendar. 9 meetings tomorrow. 3 of them are about other meetings. You have $42,000 in student debt, a car payment of $415, and a rent that just went up 8%. You are 25. You are doing everything right. You got the degree, you got the job, you wear the lanyard. But every time you swipe your card at the grocery store, there is a microsecond of tension in your jaw before it says, approved. This is the baseline. This is where the illusion is the thickest. You believe that hard work equals freedom. You believe that if you just answer emails faster, stay later, and put together better slide decks, the system will eventually reward you with peace. The first rule: a salary is the exact amount of money they pay you to forget your dreams. It is a subscription model for your compliance. You get promoted. You are 27. Your new title has the word senior in it. Your salary bumps from $62,000 to $74,000. You celebrate by upgrading your apartment and buying a watch you saw on Instagram. Your expenses expand perfectly to absorb the new income. 6 months later, your balance is $3,142 again. The numbers got bigger, but the math stayed exactly the same. You are running faster, but the treadmill just sped up. And then it happens. The spreadsheet moment. It is 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. You can't sleep. You open Excel, you map out your income, your expenses, your 3% annual raises, and the inflation rate. You drag the cells down to row 65. You stare at the final number. The math breaks you. You realize that 40 years of perfect behavior, 40 years of alarm clocks, performance reviews, and fake smiles in the break room leads to a retirement where you still have to check the price of salmon at the grocery store. The panic isn't hot. It is cold. It is clinical. You don't buy a new car. You don't upgrade your phone. You open a brokerage account. You transfer $500 into an S&P 500 index fund. It feels like throwing a pebble into a black hole. The next month, you do it again, $800, then $1,200. You discover treasury bills. You learn what yield means. You stop caring about the color of your debit card and start caring about your savings rate. Your net worth crosses $28,000. You are 29. For the first time in your life, you possess a number that represents stored human energy that you did not immediately consume. You check the brokerage app every day. Not the trade, just to remind yourself that the wall is being built. The shift. You stop seeing your paycheck as your lifeblood. You start seeing it as capital extraction. Your employer isn't your family. They are a funding source for your asset portfolio. You are exchanging hours you will never get back for capital that will eventually buy back your time. You are 31. Your net worth is $185,000. You are sitting in a Q3 strategy meeting. The VP of sales is red in the face, screaming about missing revenue targets by 4%. 2 years ago, this would have ruined your week. Your heart would have raced. You would have worked until 10 p.m. Today, you look at him and you feel absolutely nothing. You feel a mild anthropological curiosity. Why is he so angry? You do the math in your head. If they fire you right now, in this room, you have enough liquid capital in short-term bonds to pay your rent and eat perfectly well for 3.5 years without working a single day. The invisible leash is gone. The second rule: the most dangerous person in a corporate hierarchy is the one who no longer needs the paycheck to survive. Your colleagues notice the change. You stop volunteering for stretch assignments that offer no extra pay. You leave at 5:01 p.m. When asked to join a mandatory fun event on a Saturday, you calmly say, "I have other commitments." You don't elaborate. People think you are unmotivated. They don't understand that you are highly motivated, just not by their game. You are playing a different game on a different board with different physics. Your social life fractures. You decline an invitation to a bachelor party in Tulum that would cost $3,500. A friend gets annoyed. Come on, you make good money. You do make good money, but you understand the time value of that $3,500. Invested at 8%, that weekend in Tulum costs your future self $35,000. You say no. You stay quiet. You don't preach about index funds. You learn that evangelizing financial independence to people drowning in consumer debt only makes them defensive. You protect your capital and you protect your peace. You are 35. Your portfolio crosses $850,000. Something profound happens. The math crosses the Rubicon. Last year, the market was up 10%. Your portfolio generated $85,000 in unrealized gains and dividends. Your post-tax salary from your grueling 50-hour-a-week corporate job was $82,000. Your money is now working harder than you are. Your money doesn't need to sleep, it doesn't get sick, it doesn't care about office politics. It just quietly compounds 24/7, relentlessly pressing forward. You stare at the brokerage screen. You feel a sudden, terrifying vertigo. Identity death. For your entire adult life, you were an account director or a senior project manager. Your worth was tied to your labor. But if your assets make more than your labor, who are you? What is your purpose? The third rule. Time is the only non-renewable asset in the universe. Everything else, money, status, title, is just liquidity. You are 39. Your net worth is $2.8 million. You are debt-free. Your investments yield roughly $110,000 a year in safe withdrawal rates. You live on $60,000. It is a Tuesday morning. The alarm does not ring because you deleted the application that controls it off your phone last night. You wake up to the sound of rain against the glass, and for the first time in 14 years, your chest does not tighten at the thought of a weekday commute. You brew coffee slowly. You watch the water bloom over the dark grounds. You are acutely aware of the passing of minutes, not because you are running late, but because these minutes finally belong entirely to you. You put on a suit, not your best suit, just a gray one. You drive to the office. The traffic on the interstate is a parking lot of manufactured misery. You look at the cars idling around you. You see the people gripping their steering wheels, their faces illuminated by the pale blue light of their dashboard displays. You begin calculating the collective debt of the vehicle sitting in a quarter-mile radius. It is staggering. Millions of dollars in depreciating steel, financed at 6 or 8% interest, carrying exhausted people to jobs they despise, just so they can generate the cash flow required to pay for the steel that brought them there. You feel entirely detached from it. You are a ghost observing the living. You are no longer participating in the physical reality of the commuter. You are merely a tourist passing through their ecosystem. You walk into the glass building. The fluorescent lights hum with that familiar soul-draining frequency. You badge in. You walk to the Human Resources office on the 14th floor. You do not log into your computer. You do not check your email. You hand in a one-page letter printed on heavy stock paper. It contains 2 sentences. The HR director, a woman named Sarah, who has spent her entire adult life optimizing employee retention metrics, looks at you with genuine confusion. She scans the paper, then looks up, adjusting her glasses. Are you going to a competitor? We can counteroffer. I know the Q3 targets were aggressive, but the VP is willing to authorize a retention bonus. We can bump you to $165,000 and throw in a substantial RSU package to keep you here. You do the math in your head before she even finishes the sentence. The restricted stock units vest over 4 years. After short-term capital gains tax, they represent a rounding error in your portfolio's daily fluctuation. The $165,000 salary requires 60 hours a week of your finite, depreciating biological existence. To accept it would be to sell your remaining youth at a catastrophic discount. You smile, a genuine warm smile. No, you say. I'm just done. Done with the industry? Are you pivoting to consulting? She asks, her brain desperately trying to categorize your behavior into a known variable. I am just done, you reply gently. They don't understand. The system is not programmed to process someone who simply opts out. The corporate apparatus understands ambition. It understands greed. It understands burnout. It has protocols, forms, and exit interviews for all of those.
but it has absolutely no protocol for a 39-year-old who looks at the ladder, evaluates the structural integrity of the rungs, realizes the roof it leads to is on fire, and simply decides to go for a walk instead. They think everybody has a price. They don't realize you already bought yourself. You walk out of the glass building at 10:30 a.m. The sun has broken through the rain clouds. The streets are mostly empty because everyone else is inside, trading their Tuesdays for survival. The silence of the city on a weekday morning is deafening. It is not an empty silence. It is a heavy, resonant silence. It is the sound of absolute sovereignty.
At $2.8 million, you don't buy Lamborghinis. You don't buy Rolexes. You buy Tuesday mornings. You buy the ability to sit on a park bench and read a book about Roman history for 4 hours without feeling a single ounce of guilt about productivity. You buy the right to let the phone ring and ring and ring, knowing that whoever is on the other end has absolutely no leverage over your survival. The game changes entirely. You are no longer playing defense. For 15 years, your financial life was a fortress built to repel the siege of rent, inflation, and unexpected medical bills. Now, the siege is over. The gates are open. You are an allocator. Your portfolio is your employee now. You spend your time optimizing its efficiency, reducing tax drag, harvesting losses, and balancing yields. The first 6 months of this new life are terrifying. Psychologists call it decompression sickness. You wake up at 6 a.m. with phantom stress, your heart racing because you think you missed a calendar invite from the VP of operations. Then you remember you don't have an email address tied to a corporate server anymore. You have to actively deprogram your brain from the belief that your worth is tied to your output. You learn to sit in a quiet room and just exist, fighting the deeply ingrained capitalist urge to monetize your hobbies. You start a garden. You don't try to sell the tomatoes at a farmer's market. You just eat them. This feels like an act of profound rebellion. You are 43. Net worth, $6.1 million. The compounding effect has entered its aggressive parabolic phase. You didn't double your net worth by clipping coupons or saving 10% of a salary. You got here because you used your initial $2.8 million base to take asymmetric, calculated risks that a W-2 employee living paycheck to paycheck could never stomach. You start playing in different markets. You no longer just buy index funds, you buy private credit. You buy distressed commercial real estate during a regional credit crunch, stepping in with cold, hard cash when the local banks are terrified of defaults. You provide seed capital to a B2B software startup your former colleague founded. You demand preferred shares and a board seat. You are no longer borrowing money from the bank. You became the bank. You sit in a capital allocators meeting in a nondescript, unmarked office building in Geneva. There are 4 other people in the room. No one is wearing a tie. No one raises their voice. The air in the room is meticulously temperature controlled. There are no PowerPoint presentations with flashy animations. There are only printed stacks of financial disclosures, audited balance sheets, and the quiet clinking of expensive mineral water being poured into glass tumblers. You are looking at a deal to acquire a regional manufacturing company in the American Midwest. The financials show $80 million in gross revenue, solid EBITDA margins, and a bloated operational structure. But you are looking at the payroll line item. It is a massive number. You know exactly what it represents. It represents 400 human beings who are currently terrified of losing their jobs. It represents 400 people dealing with the Sunday scaries. 400 people who will endure toxic management, frozen wages, and diminishing benefits to ensure this company remains profitable because their 30-year mortgages depend on it. You look at the private equity partner across the table. He is running a sensitivity analysis on his iPad, trying to figure out if they can fire 15% of the workforce to increase the enterprise value before flipping the company in 5 years. He doesn't see 400 people. He sees an inefficiency in the cash flow. You don't feel evil. You don't feel virtuous. You just see the matrix for exactly what it is. The 4th rule. The corporate system is a perfectly engineered machine designed to convert the anxiety of the middle class into the dividends of the ownership class. You understand now that every time a mid-level manager stays late to finish a report out of fear of being laid off, they are generating a micro-fraction of a cent of value that eventually flows upward, crossing oceans and tax borders, until it lands in the brokerage account of someone sitting in a quiet room in Geneva. You approve the acquisition. You commit $1.5 million of your own capital to the syndicate. The capital is deployed. The cycle continues.
You return home. The social chasm that began fracturing in your early 30s has now widened into an unbridgeable canyon. You are invited to a dinner party by friends you have known since college. You sit around a beautiful dining table. They are successful by conventional metrics. They are doctors, senior attorneys, regional directors. They earn $200,000 to $400,000 a year. The conversation inevitably turns to money. It always does. They complain about the rising cost of private school tuition. They complain about the 7% interest rate on their new home equity line of credit. One of them tells a harrowing story about a $3,000 unexpected plumbing repair that forced them to cancel a family vacation to Hawaii. They nod in solidarity. They look to you for commiseration. You sit there, sipping a $14 glass of wine, maintaining a neutral, sympathetic expression. You cannot tell them the truth. You cannot tell them that while they were eating the bruschetta appetizer, the Japanese yen fluctuated against the dollar, and your portfolio passively generated $34,000 in unrealized gains. You cannot tell them that a $3,000 plumbing bill is a concept that no longer registers in your financial neurology. If a pipe bursts in your home, you don't look at your bank account, you text a property manager to fix it, and the cost is absorbed by the cash flow of a municipal bond you bought 3 years ago. You simulate empathy. That's brutal, you say, shaking your head. Contractors are charging crazy rates these days.
You remember what financial panic felt like. You remember the exact sensation of putting the store brand olive oil back on the shelf. But it is a distant, fading memory, like trying to recall the plot of a movie you saw a decade ago. You realize that you cannot relate to 99.9% of humanity anymore. You have lost the universal language of financial friction. You are 52. Net worth, $45 million. The numbers have lost all meaning. The difference between $12 million and $45 million changes absolutely nothing about your daily routine. You can only sleep in one bed at a time. You can only eat 3 meals a day. You still wear a plain black t-shirt. You still prefer driving yourself in a completely unremarkable sedan because you value anonymity over status. You are obsessed with systems now. You study how wealth moves across generations. You realize that making the money was the easy part. Preventing it from dissipating is the true intellectual challenge. You set up blind trusts, you hire a boutique family office, you architect legal fortresses around your capital, LLCs holding holding companies wrapped in irrevocable trusts situated in tax-advantaged jurisdictions. You are building an empire that will operate long after your biological functions cease. Your great-grandchildren, people whose faces you will never see and whose names you will never know, will live off the dividends of the cold, clinical decisions you made when you were 29 years old. You realize the ultimate truth about money at this altitude. It is not a tool for buying things. Buying things is what poor people think rich people do. Wealth is a tool for bending reality. It isolates you from consequence. If you get sued, your team of litigators buries the plaintiff in paperwork until they run out of funding. If you make a bad investment and lose $2 million, your portfolio rebalances and you write off the loss against your active gains. It isolates you from friction. You do not wait in lines. You do not deal with customer service bots. If you want a table at a restaurant that is booked out for 6 months, your wealth manager makes a call, a donation is quietly made to a charity the chef supports, and a table materializes. But the isolation comes with a strange, hollow echo. Without friction, the world begins to feel weightless. Without the threat of financial ruin, achievements lose their edge. You understand why billionaires try to go to space or buy social media platforms. They are desperately searching for a game that still has stakes, a game where they can still feel the rush of potential failure. You don't buy rockets. You prefer the quiet observation of the machine. It is a Tuesday afternoon. You are sitting in a high-end cafe in the financial district of a major city. It is raining outside, the same kind of rain that fell on the morning you quit your job 13 years ago. You are waiting for a meeting with a biotech founder that you scheduled purely out of intellectual curiosity. You don't need to invest in his company, but you want to hear how he thinks about mRNA sequencing. You look at the line at the counter. You see a young man, maybe 24, 25 years old. He is wearing a suit that doesn't quite fit. The shoulders are a fraction too wide, the hem a fraction too long. It was probably bought off the rack at a discount store for his first real corporate job. He has a blue company lanyard hanging around his neck. He steps up to the menu board.
He looks at the $8 artisanal oat milk latte. He looks at it for a long time. You see his hand drift toward his pocket. He hesitates. He pulls out his phone. He opens his banking app. You know exactly what he is doing. Across the room, amidst the hiss of the espresso machine and the murmur of venture capitalists taking meetings, you can practically feel the microsecond of tension in his jaw. You know that right now, beneath the cheap fabric of his suit, his heart rate has slightly elevated. He is doing the math. He is calculating if the $8 latte will cause his checking account to dip dangerously close to the auto draft required for his student loan payment on Friday.
He puts his phone away. The tension in his jaw relaxes into a posture of quiet defeat. He steps up to the register and orders the $3 drip coffee instead. He takes his paper cup, doesn't leave a tip, and walks out the glass door into the bustling street. He pulls his jacket tight against the rain, rushing back to a cubicle where his boss is preparing to hand him another stretch assignment, another unpaid weekend of work disguised as an opportunity for exposure. You sit there, watching him disappear into the sea of umbrellas. You know his internal monologue. He thinks that if he just puts his head down, if he just answers emails a little faster, if he just works a little harder, the math will eventually change. He thinks that the company will notice his sacrifice. He thinks loyalty is a currency that the system accepts. He doesn't know what it takes to break the equation. He doesn't know about the spreadsheets at 2 a.m. He doesn't know about the necessity of identity death. He doesn't know about the ruthless clinical decisions required to extract capital from the machine. He doesn't know about the social friction, the alienation from his peers, or the cold reality of treating his own life as a venture capital project. And he certainly doesn't know about the lonely, silent altitude of the rooms where the rules of his existence are actually written. The rooms in Geneva, in New York, in London, where people like you look at his salary as a line item to be optimized, reduced, or eliminated entirely. He glanced at his phone screen one last time before pushing the revolving door. You know exactly what was written on that screen. The balance is $3,142. It always starts there, and for most of them, it ends there too.